Okay, I want to start a series here on Mesillat Yesharim. So the path of the just. I like that translation right there. The path of just. Instead of Art Scrolls, the way of the upright. It just sounds better. So my understanding is the word Mesillat. I think it has the connotation of a ascending path. So the path of the just, the path of the upright. I can put some affiliate. I'll try to put some affiliate links in the description on some various books, translations of that you can pick up. The Art Scroll one, I'm not a fan of because it's kind of like this phrase by phrase, Hebrew English, and it's just kind of hard to read along. It's not very readable. Might be better for maybe some studying, but it's not very readable. I think the book that's very readable is this Feldheim edition. I really like this one. I like the way the translation is very it feels very smooth. The words that are used are very graspable. So I'm going to skip the translator's introduction. I'm going to go to the author's introduction. This is written by the RAMCHAL. So Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, he actually died young, but he was a pretty famous Kabbalist. And the Vilna Gaon seemed to have a lot of respect for him. And he claimed that if he could, he would have, walked across Europe basically to meet him. He felt that he was a part of the, he kind of had the energy of advancing the Messianic age, which oddly in that time period that he lived was, it seems that we had the opportunity to usher in the Messianic age, but we missed our opportunity. Like, for instance, Napoleon offered the Jewish community of Europe basically to help them reestablish the Sanhedrin. This is what is said, at least, and they didn't have the unity to do it, and they argued amongst themselves. And that's kind of interesting because Napoleon, he potentially had the ability to take back the land of Israel. He did fight the Muslims in the land of Israel, but his army was very devastated by disease or plague at the time. But that's not to say that if he could have done the right thing and actually helped the Jews of the time period to rise up to our rightful place, then that would have it's a possibility. But there was a lot of big figures in Judaism that lived at that time, like the 1700s, the end of that was right after the time of the Baal Shem Tov. There was a lot of, like, the Hasidic movement was just, I would say, flourishing. Maybe that's not the right term because sometimes small towns, there's still a little bit of oppression and all this stuff that's happening, being accepted and whatnot with their ideas across Europe. But there was a lot of spiritual potential, and this work is probably his most famous work. And I think once we go through this, you'll see why. And it is based on a Baraita that we'll get to here, and it's very interesting. So without further delay, the author's introduction. The author says, "I've written this work not to teach people what they do not know, but rather to remind them of what they already know and clearly understand." That actually has connotations of another thing, and that's that when you were a child in your mother's womb, an angel taught you the entire Torah, and You were struck on the lip, and that's why you have that little indentation right there under your nose, and you forgot it. And there's other stories that go along with that. But he's saying that, to remind us of what we already know, and that, just in normal life, not, ignoring that kind of like that spiritual story aside. We know what is right. We know the right way to go. Sometimes it's just hard. Sometimes there's things that just happen, like you can just see something crumble in front of you, but you still know what was right. Like just the other day, I was working with some of my equipment, and I took a whole process of doing the right thing. I was trying to prevent damage to it, and at the very last thing that I did, I broke it. So I took all that time, and you just see something crumble in front of you. But we know these things. We know what we're supposed to do, but sometimes things happen, and so we need that encouragement and that little emphasis, or to put us in the right spot. So he says, I've written this work not to teach people what they do not know, but rather to remind them of what they already know and clearly understand. For within most of my words you will find general rules that most people know with certainty. However, to the degree that these rules are well known and their truth self-evident, they are routinely overlooked or people forget them altogether. Therefore, the benefit to be obtained from this work cannot be derived from a single reading. It is possible that, just after one reading, the reader will find that he has learned little that he did not know before. Rather, his benefit is a function of continuous review. In this manner, one is reminded of those things which by nature people are prone to forget, and he will take to heart the duty that he tends to overlook. So this is a book, and this is one of the classic works of Mussar. And he says it's something that you have to review. I can absolutely say that I've read through this book once in my life, before I got married, and it's probably one of my favorite books of Jewish literature, and it is something that I've gone back to quite a few times in my life, just like he says, but sometimes it's not that I come back to it as a reference to something, but it's almost like something you're drawn back to, right? Because it's something that your soul really desires. It's like that, something that you thirst for, right? And you want that reminder, and encouragement to do what's right. Okay, so almost everywhere you look in the world today, you will find that the majority of the bright and clever people are devoting their thinking and investigations to a profound analysis of worldly knowledge and its subtleties, each according to his intellectual capabilities and natural inclinations. There are some who focus their efforts on the study of the physical world and the laws of nature. Others immerse themselves in astronomy and geometry, and some follow the path of technological applications. And there are also those who have entered the realm of the sacred and are studying the Holy Torah, some occupying themselves in the theoretical aspects of halacha, others with midrash, yet others with the practical formulation of legal decisions. Poskim. However, there are a few from this last group who choose to devote thought and study to the total perfection of the divine service, to love the eternal, to fear the eternal, the cleaving to the eternal, and to all the other aspects of piety. It is not as if they consider these aspects of knowledge unessential, for if questioned, every one of them will maintain that these are of paramount importance, and that one cannot envision a truly wise person who has not comprehended all these issues. Rather, their failure to devote more attention to the matter stems from its being so clear and so obvious to them that they see no need for investing much time in its study. They think that something else that they're studying is just more important, right? Consequently, the study of the subject and the reading of works of this kind have become the province of those whose minds lack subtlety and who are mentally sluggish. These you will see riveted to the study of piety, and this has given rise to the prevalent idea that anyone striving for piety is suspected of being dull-witted. The result of this attitude, however, is detrimental both for those who possess wisdom and for those who do not, since it leaves both deficient in true piety and makes this quality extremely rare. Those who possess wisdom are deficient in piety due to their limited study of it, while the uneducated find it beyond their grasp. Piety, therefore, is construed by people to consist of the reciting of many psalms, making very long confessions, undertaking difficult fasts, and performing ablutions in ice and snow, all of which are incompatible with intellect and reason. In the process, true piety, which we desire and strive for, eludes our understanding, for it is obvious that something which does not occupy a place in a person's mind becomes of no concern to him. And although the beginnings and foundations of piety are inbred in the heart of every truthful person, if he does not utilize them, he will lose the ability to discern their details, and he will pass over them without awareness. For piety, fear of the eternal, love of the eternal, and purity of heart are not that deeply rooted within a person not to necessitate the employment of methods for their acquisition. In this regard, they differ from natural states such as sleep and wakefulness, hunger and satiety, and all other natural instincts. Rather, the acquisition of these qualities definitely requires various methods and devices. Furthermore, while there are many factors operating to distance piety from man, there are many elements that can counter these factors. Could it then, conceivably, not be necessary to expend a great deal of time upon this study in order to know these truths and the means to acquire and keep them? How will this wisdom enter a person's heart if he will not seek it? Since the need for the perfection of divine service and the necessity of its purity and cleanliness is recognized by every wise person, for without these, the divine service, is certainly totally unacceptable, but rather repulsive and despised. For the Eternal searches all hearts and understands all the workings in our thoughts. Divrei Hayamim 28:9. So Chronicles 28:9. What then will we answer on the day of rebuke if we are lax in the study and forsake what we are required to do? This is the very essence of what the Eternal God asks of us. It is befitting our intelligence that we exert ourselves and labor in speculations concerning which we have no obligation, in fruitless debates and empty pill-pull, and in laws that are not applicable to us, while the great obligation that we owe our Creator we abandon to habit and rote. If we have neither contemplated nor studied what true fear of heaven is, or what its ramifications are, how will we acquire it? How will we escape from the vanity of the world that renders our hearts forgetful? Surely it will fade away and be forgotten, even though we recognize its necessity. And likewise, love of the eternal, if we do not make an effort to anchor it within our hearts, with the power of all those means that lead us toward it, how will it exist within us? How will devotion and ardor for the Blessed One and His Torah enter into our souls if we do not direct ourselves towards His greatness and exaltedness, thereby internalizing it within our hearts? How will our thoughts be purified if we do not try to cleanse them from the blemishes infused in them by physical nature? Much the same can also be said about the character traits which need improvement and adjustment. Who will adjust them, and who will correct them with all the necessary rigor, if not for us? If we analyze the matter objectively, we would no doubt discover its veracity. This would benefit us, and we could then teach it to others, thereby benefiting them as well. As stated by Shlomo in Mishle 2, verses 4 and 5, Proverbs 2, 4 and 5, if you seek it as you would silver and search for it as for hidden treasures, then you will understand fear of the eternal. He does not say, then you will understand philosophy, then you will understand astronomy, then you will understand medicine, then you will understand legal issues and judgments of halacha, but rather, then you will understand fear of the eternal. We see that in order to understand fear of the eternal, we must seek it out as he would silver and search for it as if it would be hidden treasures. What has been transmitted to us through our parents and what is generally self-evident to every religious individual is insufficient. But yet we see that time can be found for all other branches of study, yet for this no time is available. Why can't a person at least designate specific times for this purpose that would not interfere with other studies and endeavors that he pursues in the remainder of his time? The scripture states in Yov 28:28, Hain, behold, fear of the eternal, this is wisdom. Our sages of blessed memory comment in Shabbat 31b that Hain here means one, for that is the meaning of the Greek word Hain. Thus, fear and fear alone is considered wisdom, and surely something that does not require study and investigation would not be considered wisdom. In actuality, all these matters demand profound study for one to truly know them rather than in a subjective manner or through faulty judgment, and particularly if one is to acquire and truly understand them. Therefore, he who delves into them will see that piety is not contingent on those things that the pseudo-pious and their foolishness consider relevant, but rather on true perfection and profound wisdom. This is what Moshe Rabbeinu, may peace be upon him, teaches us when he says in Deuteronomy 10:12, Yet now, Israel, what does the eternal your God request of you? Only to fear the eternal your God, to follow all his ways, and to love him, and to serve the eternal your God with all your heart and with all your being, and to keep the eternal's commandments and statutes. Here he, Moses, incorporated all the elements that are necessary for the perfection of the service that is desired by the Holy One, blessed be He. Fear of the Eternal, walking in His ways, love of the Eternal, perfecting the heart, and observance of all the mitzvot. Fear of the Eternal refers to fear that His exaltedness inspires. One should express fear before Him as one would before a great and awesome king, and he should feel embarrassment before the Eternal's greatness in every moment that he makes, and particularly when speaking before Him in prayer or when engaged in the study of His Torah. Walking in His ways relates to the finest traits of character and their cultivation, as our sages of blessed memory have explained in Shabbat 133b. Just as He is merciful, so shall you be merciful. The underlying principle being that a person must conduct himself with honesty and integrity in all his various actions. Our sages of blessed memory summarize the idea as follows in Perkei Avot 2:1. That which brings acclaim to the doer and earns him the acclaim of others, namely, all that moves toward the goal of true benevolence, meaning that it results in the strengthening of Torah and the promotion of harmony within society. Love, to implant love of the Blessed One within a person's heart so that his soul is stirred to find favor before Him, just as one's heart is stirred to please his father and mother. And he will be anguished if he finds this quality deficient in himself or in others. Furthermore, he will zealously safeguard it and will rejoice intensely when implementing even a part of it, perfecting the heart, so that the service before the Blessed One should be carried out with pure intent for the purpose of serving Him only and with no other motives. This means that one's heart should be totally devoted to the divine service, not like one who lacks commitment or acts out of habit. Rather, one's whole heart should inspire to this. Observance of all the mitzvot. This means the complete observance of all the mitzvot with all their specifications and stipulations. All of these principles require much elucidation. I have found that our sages of blessed memory have incorporated these elements into a different type of arrangement, more detailed and specific, and systematized according to the order necessary for their proper acquisition. Their words are found in a Braita cited in numerous places in the Talmud, such as the one in chapter Lifnei Eichen, before their festivals, and Avodah Zarah 20b. From here, Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair said, Torah brings one to vigilance. Vigilance brings one to alacrity. Alacrity brings one to cleanliness. Cleanliness brings one to abstinence. Abstinence brings one to purity. Purity brings one to piety. Piety brings one to humility. Humility brings one to fear of sin. And fear of sin brings one to holiness. Holiness brings one to divine inspiration. Divine inspiration brings one to the resurrection of the dead. On the basis of this Baraita, I have taken to compose this work to teach myself and remind others of the conditions necessary for the perfection of the divine service in all its stages. Regarding each stage, I will explain its content, components, and details, the methodology for acquiring it, and those factors that undermine it and how to avoid them. As a result, I, or anyone else who may be moved to read it, will learn to fear the Eternal, our God, and we will not forget our duty toward Him. That which the material world seeks to remove from our hearts will be stipulated by reading and contemplation, and it will stir us to perform what we have been commanded to do. May the Eternal support our aspirations and safeguard us from failure. May the supplication of the psalmist, beloved to his God, be fulfilled for us in Tehillim 86:11. Psalm 86:11. Teach me, O Eternal, your way. Let me walk in your truth. Unify my heart to fear your name. Amen. So may it be His will. So I want to also, I don't remember if I mentioned this, but the RAMCHAL, Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, was, he was a Kabbalist. He was a famous Kabbalist. And you almost wouldn't see this from his plain writing, but the Vilna Gaon was able to see it clearly, and I think it's the way that certain things were structured. I don't exactly know what he saw in it, but there are various things, and like I'll point out one right now, and this is the way that typically books and stuff like this are written. You know, this book is dedicated to Hashem in the sense that the first chapter, I don't know if you can see it, the first word of each line is the Yod, right? The Hey, the Vav, and the Hey, right? So, it's stuff like this that they compose their work in the structure of these types of things. There's probably associations with gematria and all kinds of other mystical stuff that might be associated with this book that is not apparent. I'm sure that there's a commentary out there that's really highlights some of that stuff, but you'll see that this book it's literally like it seems like it's completely straight, just like the name Mesillat Yesharim. It's a the like a straight the way of the upright, right? Okay, chapter 1, man's duty in the world. The bedrock of piety and the root of flawless divine service lies in man's effort to clarify and verify what his duty is in his world. He must determine what he is aiming for and how to achieve this. And all this labors throughout his lifetime. So just pause and take a minute and just answer that question yourself. What are you aiming for and how do you achieve it? And sometimes when you ask that question for your life, you're either not aiming for the right thing or you're not putting effort into trying to achieve it, right? You can say, like, I want to be a person who's influential in bringing on the Messianic age or rebuilding the temple, like, actually, that's not a bad prayer to pray. Like, personally, Hashem, please help me to play a part in the rebuilding of the Beit HaMikdash, the restoration of the nation of Israel, the Sanhedrin, everything, like the tikkun of the way that the world is supposed to be, the way you want it to be. Like, we don't pray that prayer like we should. I mean, we can pray that God will use us to be influential in working that out. And that seems crazy. Sometimes it seems crazy, but it's something that you should consider, right? So what are you aiming for and how do you achieve this? So here, our sages of blessed memory have instructed us that man was created for the sole purpose of reveling in the eternal and delighting in the splendor of the divine presence, this being the ultimate joy and the greatest of all pleasures in existence. And the true place for this pleasure is in the world to come, which was created for this purpose in mind. However, the path that helps us to reach our desired objective is this world. As our sages of blessed memory have said in Pirkei Avot 4:16, this world resembles a corridor before the world to come. The means that lead man to this goal are the mitzvot that the Eternal, may his name be blessed, commanded us to observe, and the place for doing the mitzvot is in this world alone. Sometimes we don't think about that. Like, excuse me, each mitzvah is something that's like dedicated to this world, to this life, and it's something that we do or don't do, and we don't know the reward for one or the other. Just like there's even mitzvot, right, that are not something that you have to physically operate on, like a blind person, a lame person, a deaf person can even have the ability to fulfill mitzvot, like such as the one that to remember what Amalek did to you on the way. And to not forget. So there's a mitzvah to remember and to not forget, right? And that's something that, like, you could be almost nearly a vegetable and still fulfill those commandments. You might think, well, what is the purpose for that? Well, I don't know. It's interesting that there's a reward for that. We don't even know what the reward for that is. But everything is for this world. Those mitzvot are for this world, meaning, but the reward is in the world to come. Okay. Okay, the means that lead man to this goal are the mitzvot that the Eternal, may his name be blessed, commanded us to observe, and the place for doing the mitzvot is in this world alone. Therefore, man was first placed in this world. Through these means provided for him here, he will be able to reach the destination that has been prepared for him, the world to come, where he will fill himself with the goodness that he has acquired through these means. As our sages of blessed memory have said about the mitzvot in Eruvin 22a, you do them today and receive their reward tomorrow. If you delve further into this matter, you will realize that cleaving to the Eternal alone is absolute perfection. As David HaMelech says in Tehillim 73:28, Psalm 73:28, but as for me, closeness to the Eternal is my good. And it also says in Tehillim 27:4, one thing I have asked of the Eternal, that I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Eternal all the days of my life. This alone is what is good, and anything else that is perceived by people to be good is only emptiness and deceptive worthlessness. For a person to be entitled to this good, it is only appropriate that he first labor and make the effort to acquire it. This means that he must try to cleave to the Blessed One through deeds that will lead to this goal. These deeds are the mitzvot. Yet the Holy One, blessed be He, has placed man in circumstances where many factors can distance him from the Blessed One, these being the bodily desires, for if one is drawn toward them, he progressively distances himself from the ultimate good. The result is that one really finds himself planted in the midst of a fierce battle, for everything in this world, whether for good or bad, is there to test man. Poverty on the one hand, wealth on the other. This is similar to what Shlomo said in Mishlei 30, verse 9. So, Proverbs 30, verse 9. Lest I become sated and deny him, saying, Who is the eternal? And lest I become impoverished and steal and misuse the name of my God. Tranquility on the one side, suffering on the other. A person thereby finds himself at war, both in front of him and in the rear. So if he is vigilant and wins a total victory in this war, he will have perfected himself and will be able to cleave to his Creator. He will then leave the corridor and enter the palace, permeated with the glow of light. And to the degree that he has conquered his evil inclination and desires and withdrawn himself from these factors that distance him from what is good and has striven to cleave to him, to that extent he will attain his goal and find joy within it. Okay, if you will delve deeper into this matter, you will note that the world was created to serve man. However, the world itself stands in the balance. If a person is drawn toward this world and distances himself from his Creator, he will be corrupted and will corrupt the world with him. Yet if he can rule over himself and he cleaves to his Creator and uses this world solely to aid him in serving his Creator, he will be elevated and the world itself will be uplifted with him. For it is a tremendous step upward for all of the creation when it serves the person who has perfected himself and has become sanctified with the sanctity of the Blessed Holy One. It is similar to what our sages of blessed memory said about the light that the Holy One, blessed be He, concealed for the righteous in Hagigah 12a. And since the light saw that the Holy One, blessed be He, concealed it for the righteous, it rejoiced, and as it says in Mishlei 13:9, Proverbs 13:9, the light of the righteous will rejoice. And regarding the stones from that place, in quotes, the stones from that place, that Yaakov Avinu took and placed beneath his head, so Jacob our father, they said, in Hulin 91b, Rabbi Yitzchak said that this teaches us that they gathered themselves in one spot, each one saying, Let the tzaddik rest his head upon me. It is with reference to this that our sages of blessed memory have commented in Midrash Kohelet, Kohelet 7:3, See the deeds of the eternal. That's Ecclesiastes, but Midrash Kohelet is not Ecclesiastes. It's a Midrash on it. See the deeds of the eternal. When the Holy One, blessed be He, created Adam, He took him on a tour of all the trees of Gan Eden and said to him, See how beautiful and praiseworthy my deeds are, and all that I have created for you. Take heed not to corrupt nor destroy my world. In summation, a person was not created for his position in this world, but rather for his position in the world to come. However, through his position in this world, he acquires his place in the world to come, this being the ultimate goal. Therefore, you will find many passages from our sages of blessed memory that speak of the same comparison, of this world as the place and time for preparation, and the world to come as the place where one rests and consumes what he has already prepared. As they have stated, this world resembles a corridor, Pirkei Avot 4:16. As I have written above, you do them today and receive their reward tomorrow, Eruvin 22b. He who toils on Erev Shabbat will eat on Shabbat, Avodah Zarah 3a. This world is likened to dry land in the world to come to the ocean, Kohelet Rabbah 1:15. Passages on this theme abound. Therefore, you will surely understand that no intelligent person could believe that the purpose of man's creation relates to his position in this world. For what significance is there to man's life in this world? Is there anyone truly happy or at peace in this world? The days of our years among them are 70 years, and with strength 80 years, and at their apex they are filled with toil and anguish. Tehillim 90 verse 10, Psalms 90:10. How many different forms of anguish and sickness and pains and burdens there are, and after experiencing these, there's death. One in a thousand cannot be found for whom the world were bound with pleasures and true peacefulness. And even such a one, if he lives to be 100, he is as good as departed and gone from this world. Furthermore, if the purpose of man's creation was likened to this world, there would have been no need to provide him with a soul so venerable and so exalted that it overshadowed the angels themselves. And surely the soul does not derive any satisfaction from worldly pleasures. This is what they of blessed memory have taught us in Midrash Kohelet 6:7. And even the soul will not be satisfied. This recalls a parable about an ordinary townsman who marries the king's daughter. Anything that he brings her from this world is of no significance to her, since she is the daughter of the king. And likewise, the soul, if one brings it all the delights of this world, these mean nothing to it. Why? Because the soul derives from above. And so did our rabbis of blessed memory say in Pirkei Avot 4:22, against your will you are created, and against your will you are born. For the soul has no love for this world no love for this world at all, but rather despises it. And since this is the case, the blessed Creator would surely not have created something that conflicted with its nature and was repellent to it. Therefore, the creation of man is wholly linked to his place in the world to come, and for this purpose he was given this soul. He will serve the eternal for its sake, and through it he will receive his reward at the appropriate place and time. In this manner, instead of his soul despising this world, it will love and desire it. This is self-evident. Once we know this, we will immediately understand the gravity of fulfilling the mitzvot and the value of the divine service placed in our hands. These are the means that will bring us the real perfection, for it cannot be attained without them. However, it is known that a goal can be achieved only to the degree that one consolidates all the means at one's disposal and that were utilized for its attainment. And in proportion to these efforts, the effects will be apparent. Even a minor change that occurs in the means will clearly affect the outcome when the time comes for realizing the goal that has brought them the means together. As I have already written, this is clear. Therefore, there is no doubt that meticulousness in mitzvot in the divine service must be as perfect as the precision of those who weigh gold or pearls and appreciate their value. For they, the mitzvot in divine service, lead to absolute perfection and to eternal splendor that has no equal. From this we learn that the main purpose of man's existence in this world is solely to do mitzvot, to serve the eternal, to overcome tribulations. The pleasures of this world are only meant to aid and assist him and to give him contentment and peace of mind, thereby allowing him to turn his heart toward the service that is his responsibility. It is of course appropriate that all one's attention should be directed to the Creator, blessed be He, and in all his actions he should have no other purpose, lesser or greater, than to bring himself closer to the Creator. May his name be blessed. He should break through all the barriers that separate him from his master. This means overcoming all the material elements and whatever is dependent upon them until he is drawn after the Holy One, the Blessed One, like iron drawn to a magnet. That's interesting because the nation of Israel is likened to iron. The first letter of each of the wives of Jacob spelled Barzel. The first letter of each of their wives, like Bilhah, Zilpah, Rachel, and Leah. They spelled Barzel, iron. Anything that is believed to promote this closeness must be pursued. Anything that is believed to promote this closeness must be pursued. That's a very powerful statement. One should grab it and never release his hold of it. And whatever stands in the way of these efforts should be treated like a fire that one flees from, as it says in Tehillim, Psalms 63:9. My soul cleaves after you. Your right hand supports me. Man's only purpose for coming into this world is for this, to attain this closeness, while rescuing his soul from all those things that obstruct this aim and detract from it. Now that we know and have clarified the truth of this principle of man's duty in this world, we must examine its details in accordance with their levels from the beginning to the end, as they were formulated by Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair in his teaching in Avodah Zarah 20b, previously cited in our introduction. They are vigilance, alacrity, cleanliness, abstinence, purity, piety, humility, fear of sin, and holiness. We will now explain them one by one with the aid of heaven. Okay, so the way that this book works is it gives you the virtue. So they're translated as the virtue, midat. So the midah, the principle, the virtue. It defines it. It tells you the elements of it. A chapter on acquiring it. The factors that undermine it, and how to avoid them. I think So that's the way it's structured. We just finished chapter 1, as well as the introduction to it. It is a very good book. It is an absolute treasure. So I hope you will join me and really enjoy the journey of reading through this and maybe discussing a few topics along the way.